one of his many speeches, President Barack Obama once said, "Unless you're Native American, you came from someplace else." This was to point out that, in one way or another, we are all immigrants. Of course, the complexities of the long and varied history of U.S. immigration can be a sad, painful affair, but it can also show the grit and determination many immigrant populations have when they come to the U.S. for a better life. It's a tale as old as the country itself, and the city of Dearborn, Michigan is a prime example of the long history of both the struggles and triumphs of U.S. immigrants. Dearborn has the highest concentration of Arabs and Arab Americans in the U.S. For over a century, Arabs who have migrated to Dearborn have turned the city's struggling neighborhoods into places of business, areas of education, restaurants, coffee shops, bakeries, and overall a city they can call home. When I first arrived to Dearborn, it felt both distinctly Arab and distinctly American without either identity overshadowing the other. Even though Dearborn has been the target of misguided and racist attacks from media outlets due to it being a majority Arab city, Dearborn effortlessly shows how you can be a proud Arab city and a proud American city. Historically, Arabs have been coming to Dearborn since the 1880s, but the first big wave of Arab immigration happened in the 1910s, when Henry Ford needed workers for his vehicle factories that would turn Detroit, and by extension Dearborn, into Motor City. How Henry Ford made thousands of mostly Yemeni Arab migrants come to work in his factories is half historical and half urban legend. One story goes that Henry Ford met an Arab migrant from Yemen by chance and was so impressed by his work ethic that he asked the migrant where he was from. When he told Henry Ford he was from Yemen, Ford sent ships to Yemen to bring back more Yemeni migrants to work in his factories. Another story says Henry Ford already knew Yemeni migrants were hard workers who could provide cheap labor, so he immediately sent ships to bring back as many as possible. Regardless of how it happened, the result was the same. Thousands of Arab workers ended up in Michigan and would plant the seeds for Dearborn to eventually become the Arab capital of the U.S. While this was a great opportunity for many Arabs to find a better life in the U.S., Henry Ford himself was just as vile as he was generous. Ford would pay his workers $5 a day, which was a high wage at the time, but he would also force his migrant workers to Americanize themselves as he saw fit, and he would go to great lengths to make sure his workers were following his American way of life. Ford would hire private security to check on his workers at their own homes when off the clock to make sure they were living up to Henry Ford's standards. If Arabs or other migrant groups were caught holding on to their cultural beliefs, Henry Ford would cut their pay, or worse, be fired from their jobs. This instilled fear rather than discipline, and sub-Arab migrants were so scared they would not be considered American enough that they Americanized their names to avoid scrutiny from their boss. So Jamal would turn into Jimmy, as an example. Throw in Henry Ford's blatant anti-Semitism, and you have a terrible and brilliant man who changed America and offered work opportunities to many Arab migrants, while at the same time stripping those migrants of their unique Arab beliefs, customs, and culture in order to work in his factories. Still, thousands of Arabs came to work for Henry Ford when the Detroit area was a booming motor city. Eventually, many would settle in Dearborn since the two cities are right next to each other. But as the car industry declined over the years, so did many job opportunities. Dearborn, however, still grew as an Arab city despite these challenges. Another wave of Arab migrants came in the 1980s. This time, the main Arab migrants were mostly from Lebanon due to the economic and political instability that was caused by the Lebanese Civil War in the 1980s and because of Israel's invasion of southern Lebanon in 1982. As Yemenis did before, many Lebanese left their home country in search of a better life. Today, the Lebanese success story can be seen everywhere in Dearborn since, out of all the Arab ethnicities, they have the highest numbers demographically speaking. During the 1980s, the decline of the motor industry meant that Dearborn was in a bit of a rut. However, many Lebanese migrants saw this as an opportunity to rebuild the city. This is greatly exemplified in Warren Avenue. Warren Avenue for Dearborn can be considered the city's quote unquote touristy street. Think Bourbon Street in New Orleans. It might not be as flashy as Bourbon Street, but it serves a greater purpose than just getting tourists drunk. As explained in the book Arab Americans in Michigan by Rosina J. Hassan, Warren Avenue in the 1980s was an abandoned, dilapidated street. Long story short, many Lebanese and other Arab migrants bought the cheap real estate in Warren Avenue and slowly but surely made it into a mecca, no pun intended, of businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, grocery stores, bakeries, bookstores, barber shops, and community centers. You name it, Warren Avenue has got you covered. It's in Warren Avenue that you can find arguably the city's most popular bakery, Shatila Bakery. Shatila Bakery is so popular, it's become a landmark of the city. Opened in 1979 by Lebanese immigrant Riyad Shatila, this bakery attracts visitors from faraway cities just to try their pastries. It's here where I tried one of the Arab world's most popular desserts, kunafa. Made out of sweet cheese, crunchy spoon cake, sprinkled with pistachios, and drizzled with sugar syrup, to say this Arab dessert is delicious is an understatement. The crunchiness of the spoon cake combined with the melted cheese makes kunafa one of my favorite Arabic foods, period. But Shatila Bakery is not the only place you can find great kunafa. Lebanon Sweets, another Lebanese bakery, are famous for the cheese dome, a kunafa that is stuffed with sesame seed bread. At first, I wasn't too sure if I wanted to have kunafa in the form of a sandwich, but it turns out the sesame seed bread adds to the sweetness, flavor, and consistency of the kunafa. It's a small change that adds a lot to an already classic dish. But kunafa isn't the only Arab dish that rules in Dearborn. Shawarma is also king, and it is everywhere. For those not familiar, shawarma can be described as an Arabic burrito. Hamido restaurant serves Lebanese-style shawarma, and while they also serve other Lebanese dishes, their shawarma exemplifies the notion of simple, but delicious. Shawarma can come stuffed with chicken, lamb, or beef, and it's accompanied by tahini sauce and pickles. Shawarmas come in different tastes and preparation methods depending on what country it originates from. Dama's Broasted Chicken is a Syrian restaurant and also specializes in shawarma along with other Syrian dishes. Syrian-style shawarma is different taste-wise. The spices are different, the tahini sauce is a bit creamier, and the veggies added to it are different. One thing stays the same though. It's pretty damn good. I've lost count how many shawarmas I ate in Dearborn. But with the most recent wave of Arab migrants being from Iraq due to Saddam Hussein's brutal regime and due to the 2003 US invasion of Iraq, many Iraqis have also migrated to Dearborn and made their mark on Warren Avenue. The aptly named Iraqi kebab is exactly what the name entails. It's Iraqi-style kebabs that are unique as they are delicious. Once again, it's the different types of seasoning that really bring out the flavors that make this kebab uniquely Iraqi, and it comes with grilled tomatoes. There was even a recently opened Iraqi brunch place called Darbuna. Iraqi brunch was something I never knew I needed in my life, but man did I love this place. I actually came here 3 times during my week in Dearborn. It was that good. Their spicy Iraqi eggs really go well with pita bread, their kebabs are delicious, and the waiter told me they're actually veggie-based. They also had this savory cheese-filled pastry called burag, which looks like an egg roll. All these restaurants, and so much more, are in one street, Warren Avenue. And at a time when Warren Avenue was abandoned, Arabs and Arab Americans came and made it a thriving commercial street. Fatma's Bakery is one of the many small Arab businesses that make Dearborn a culturally thriving city. The bakery itself is in the garage of Fatma's own home, though she is thinking of expanding. Adorned with decorations that give you the feeling of being transported to Lebanon itself, Fatma's Bakery focuses on traditional Lebanese bread known as saj. The process in making this bread requires skill. Luckily, Fatma has over 30 years of experience. With the dough already prepared, she starts out by flattening it with her hands until it's wide enough for her to use a technique called a hili. Using her hands with a grace that can only come from decades of experience, she widens the dough even more and sets it on a kara, which means bread's pillow in Arabic. And then, wham! She slams the dough on a traditional stove where it cooks literally in seconds. Fatme makes it look so easy, but there is an art and an endurance to her craft. The art comes from Fatme's graceful technique. The way she widens the dough is almost mesmerizing, and I could watch her do it all day. The endurance comes from the heat. Not only did we visit Dearborn during the summer, but the heat coming from the stove was palpable. It's hard to convey in a video, but making Lebanese saj can be very, hot. Literally. I can only imagine how much hotter it is in the motherland of Lebanon. But Fatme is a pro, and through decades of hard work, she has perfected her craft. The amount of admiration I have for this kind of cultural work is immeasurable. This experience made me want to know more about Fatme's own story of coming to the US and what inspired her in opening her own bakery.
نحن اجينا لهون على امريكا بال 1999 بظروف يعني صحية خاصة لحدا من أولادي وهيك يعني هذا سبب مجهودنا لهون. ومن بعدين لما اجيت وأسسنا عائلة هالعائلة يعني أنا ما بشتغل ما عندي شهادة لحتى مثلا اشتغل فيها أو شيء بعرف هالمصلحة. أمي علمتنا الخبز وأنا يعني قلت ما زال عندي شيء بعرف أعمله ليش بدي أقعد وكتف إيدي وبدي العالم تساعدني وبدي إنه قاعد أنضب حظي وأبكي على حالي ليش لا أنا بلشت هيك فتحت البيكري يعني لأنه صار عندي عائلة والعائلة بدها مصروف وأنا ما بحب يعني أعيش على حساب حدا يعني ما بحب انه الدولة تساعدني وانا مثلا فيني اشتغل ولا بحب العالم تساعدوني وكمان انا فيني اشتغل. So that's why انا يعني فتحت البيكري وبلشت اشتغل وساعد بيتي وولادي وهيك صرنا شوي شوي صرنا نكبر ونعمل اشياء كتيرة يعني كعك خبز مناقيش على انواعها خبز الاسمر خبز الاورجانيك كل هاي الاشياء وصارت الناس كلها بتعرفنا الحمد لله صرنا فترة طويلة هون وهيك الحمد لله يعني وماشي حالنا كتر خير الله.
During our casual conversations, Fatma imparted these words of wisdom. You give others what you expect to eat. To go along with our Lebanese saj, we were given a basket filled with fresh vegetables, cheese, homemade sour cream, fruit jam, olives, and cheese balls known as labneh, along with refreshing tea, or chai. Not only that, but our saj was also made with cheese and zatar, or thyme seeds. We were even given a sweet saj with Nutella after finishing our savory meal. If that wasn't enough, we finished our meal with some freshly sliced watermelon. Fatma described our visit as a lamma, or gathering, as we were treated as honored guests and had lovely conversation throughout our nearly 3-hour visit. Fatma and her family exemplify Arab hospitality, and it was a privilege to see Fatma exemplify her work. With Fatma teaching her daughters, Zara and Kaltha, the ways of making Lebanese saj for the next generation, it's safe to say this Lebanese tradition is here to stay. MashaAllah. Like many non-Muslims, I don't know much about Islam. While my travels to the United Arab Emirates and Morocco have educated me on what Islam is as a religion, I'm definitely no expert. I'm a Catholic for crying out loud, and a really bad one. Which is why this trip to Dearborn was also a journey to understand Islam and dispel a lot of misinformation and misunderstandings about Islam. My first stop was at the American Muslim Society. By absolute chance, I met Wayne, a local of Dearborn of Afghani descent, and someone who was more than happy to explain Islam, the mosque, as well as how Muslims prepare for prayer. In Islam, you pray at specific times of the day. To get ready for prayer, Muslims need to wash their feet, hands, face, nose, and ears. Once that's done, you head to the praying area of the mosque and wait for the call to prayer. While we waited, I also met Abdu, a young man from Yemen who has lived in the US since he was 5. Both him and Wayne were curious about my video project and were very thankful that I took on this endeavor. We talked for quite a while, and our conversation was something I wished I got on camera, but we were having natural and genuine conversation, so to bring up the GoPro and say, "Hey, can I film this?" that would break the flow of our conversation. One of the things I was curious about, though, was the difference between Shia and Sunni Muslims. Wayne explained that Sunni Muslims believe that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not explicitly declare a successor, while Shia Muslims believe that the Prophet publicly designated his son-in-law, Hazrat Ali, as the first in the line of hereditary imams from the Prophet's family to lead the community after him. The American Muslim Society is a Sunni mosque, but Wayne made it clear that whether you're Shia or Sunni, you are still Muslim. Both Sunnis and Shias use the Quran, they pray in mosques, they have no imagery or saints, and share the same Islamic holidays such as Ramadan and Eid. When the call to prayer finally came, I sat in a corner and experienced my first ever call to prayer inside a mosque.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
You don't have to be Muslim to appreciate a call to prayer. As the prayers were going on, I felt from the people a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and a sense of being a part of something bigger than yourself. To Muslims, dedicating this small amount of time to Allah, or God, is a small way they can give thanks for all the blessings bestowed upon them. I was grateful to be allowed to witness this essential part in the lives of many Muslims. And again, a big thank you to Wayne and Abdu for teaching me about Islam and for telling me their stories about their lives in Dearborn. In addition to the American Muslim Society, I also visited the Islamic Center of America, which is famous for being the country's biggest mosque. I was graciously given a tour by one of its volunteers, Mirvat Kadu. She explained the history of the mosque as well as answering other questions pertaining to Islam.
So the Islamic Center of America was established in 1962. So we just celebrated last year our 60th year anniversary. And actually in 2022, we celebrated our 60th year anniversary. And we've been servicing the community for over 60 years. And it all started by our founding father, which is Imam Muhammad Jawad Shidi. Imam Muhammad Jawad Shidi came to Dearborn in the late 40s, early 50s, because there was a small first, second generation already Arab American Muslims who lived here, but did not have a place of worship. So back then, they used to have this small little hall called the Hashmi Hall in the south end of Dearborn. And that's where they migrated, because in the south end of Dearborn is where Ford is located, and a lot of Arab Americans came from overseas to Michigan to work in the factory workers, and Henry Ford himself used to employ a lot of immigrants because it was cheap labor. And what they did was they had a Hashmi Hall, and they used to go there, and they used to join one another, and they used to talk about Islam and pray together. So it was like a very small knit community. So when he came, he started to talk to all of the community members here, and his vision was, we want to build a mosque in Dearborn. So what he did was he had met with our founding fathers, this is one of the original pictures of the founding fathers, And what they did was they told him, okay, we'll support your vision. And they all put liens on their homes. So they put liens on their homes and gave him money. And then he told them that he will pay them back once they get situated. Okay? And they did that. And that's when the Islamic Center of Detroit was born. So the Islamic Center of Detroit was born in 1964. Quickly, that's a picture of 1964. So 1962 is when we opened the Islamic Center of Detroit at that time. And what he did was, like I mentioned, he went from house to house. He even went all over the world to try to get as much money as he can to build this mosque. And one of his first and biggest supporters was the Egyptian president, Jamal Abdel Nasser, which is right there. And Jamal Abdel Nasser had given him $40,000 to him to start the build. And out of that 40, he gave about approximately, I'm off by 1,000 or two, 10,000 to the Hashmi Hall, because he did not forget the people of Hashmi Hall. So he gave $10,000. Imam Jawad Sharif had told him, we'll give $10,000 to Hashmi Hall, and we'll take the remaining 30, and then we'll start the building.
The actual president of Egypt.
The actual president. And this is the actual wire. It was sent in 1959. The telegram from the National Bank of Egypt detailing the donation promised by President Jamal Abdel Nasser. So Muhammad Jawad Sharif's vision was, I'm going to teach them Islam, but I'm going to teach them step by step. I'm not going to force it upon them and let them take the next step as they please. So he accepted everybody to whom they are. And that's how us at the Islamic Center of America deal with till today. So you can tell within the pictures is that the women were wearing, sleeveless shirts, no headpieces on some of them, short skirts. It was okay because he was still teaching them what Islam was and and then during, if you keep going, you'll see that during the times they got more modest, and then they just got into the Islam. But till today, we teach Islam in a way of everyone takes their own step of what would be next for them to complete. This is the only mosque that you will find within North America, I think anywhere, that's not owned by any family heir. This mosque can never be transferred or sold. Everything that the Islamic Center of America has done was through donations and through community support. So, and that's what we live and thrive on, volunteers, and that's what we are doing today. So as the community and the war-torn countries, whether it was Iraq, whether it was Palestine, Yemen, Lebanese, Egypt, all of them started to migrate to Michigan. And the community kept getting larger and larger and larger. And then the mosque was not able to accommodate everybody. So then we started a big fundraising in which that we wanted to build a new mosque, which was here present, which you see right now. This mosque is on property between churches. It's in the center of Dearborn. This land is owned by Ford Land. The history of it is owned by Ford Land. The street right in front of the churches and the mosque is called Altar Road. He named it Altar Road. And then you have Ford Road, although all our addresses are Ford Road. So he had Altar. So he kind of froze this land for religious institution. Churches, really, he'd never in his right mind would have thought a mosque would be in the middle. But what was in the middle between these was a YMCA. So we bought the YMCA, and then we turned the YMCA into one of the first Muslim private schools. And what we do is we educate from pre-K all the way to 8th grade. And it's exact same thing as any other private school. We're accredited. And so that was born in 1997. So in 1997, we started to fundraise to build this mosque. And it took years to do that. One of our fundraisers, I believe it was in 2003, in one night we had raised over $3 million. And there's photographs here of that fundraiser somewhere. I think it's, you'll see it. And then, let me show you one of them. See this? So this was while the building was being built. This was 2004. We actually put tents outside of the parking lot. And then we fundraised so that people could see and come into the place as it was being built, which you'll see that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this building was completed in May of 2005. That was our grand opening, and it costed the community $15 million, and which was all fundraised by the community.
All of it.
All of it, $15 million. And it's around 56,000 square feet. We're known to be the largest mosque in North America. And we serve the community of Dearborn, Metro Detroit, and all around the surrounding cities, even overseas. Our mission here is to help anyone. It doesn't matter by color, race, religion. Anyone that walks through these doors and needs assistance, we have a system in place that we're able to help.
Gotcha. What are imams? Because that's
Okay,
one
the
thing.
imam, the imam is the religious scholar. He is the head religious scholar that's for the Muslims. There are sayyids and then there's sheikh. So the sayyids are the people with the black turbans, for example, and they're descendants of the Prophet. And then the people who are white are just imams. So they went to school and graduated and received their, we'll call it the alam, their piece of the connecting to be a sheikh. And the sayyids have to still do the same thing, but the difference coloring is letting you know that the person that's wearing black is a descendant of the Prophet.
Got it.
And then we have services of Saturday school, which teaches Arabic. And then we also have services of Sunday school. So Sunday school came up to be when Muhammad Jawad Shari was doing the Islamic services. Well, a lot of the people, because I was one of them, born and raised here. So on Sunday, you saw a lot of your friends and their families are going to church. So he chose Sunday, although Friday is the religious day for the Muslims. He chose Sunday and said, okay, you know what? We'll do Sunday school, which you'll see right here. So we'll do Sunday school, which the kids will go to the mosque on Sundays. They will learn Islam, and the parents will sit in the halls and have Sunday breakfast, which is kind of like this. And till today, we do that. We still have that tradition going that it is on Sunday. We do have Sunday breakfast every Sunday. It's opened up to the community. This is when a group of young ladies and nowadays, young adults and teenagers would come together on Sunday, and we would make our traditional breads and cookies, and then we would serve the community. And there's no fee involved. So we just want the community to come together. We'll have a donation, and the community is so given, they'll just donate. But for anyone that can't afford, in a sense, when you come into this mosque, you are like, there's no requirements. So you'll be, whatever you need, we're here. So we just they serve breakfast for their kids. The kids will go into Sunday school, and then the parents will learn Islam, or we have a Q&A that the imam would do a sermon for about 20 minutes and open the questioning to the families, and they can ask questions and go back and forth with the imam. And then the Sunday school teaches Islam, Saturday school teaches Arabic, writing and reading. So then you have some people that say, well, I only want them to learn Arabic and English. I don't want them to learn too much religion, or vice versa in a sense. So we'll have 2 days to accommodate everybody. But Saturday school, you're always going to have some religion, but 75% of it is the Arabic language.
Gotcha. In addition to a room detailing the history of the Islamic Center of America, there is also a room dedicated to honoring members of the mosque who have served in the military, including some of its founding members who fought in the Korean War. As we explored the rest of the mosque, Mirvat emphasized how nearly all the material needed to build the mosque was imported thanks to donations by the community. The chandeliers came from Egypt, the front doors of the mosque are from Turkey, even the floor tiles were imported from Brazil. The Islamic Center of America was even able to have a famous Lebanese artist come and work for the mosque, as Mirvat explains.
One of our board members went to Lebanon, and there was this man by the name of Harut Bastijan. Harut was called the Michelangelo of domes. And if you look him up right now, you'll know who he is. And so he painted over 40, I believe, domes, mosques throughout the world. So what we did was, in 2008, one of our board members went there and told them, listen, we built the largest mosque in North America, and we want you to come in and paint our prayer room, which our prayer room is called the masjid, and that's this actual centered room, which we will go in right now. And he came in 2008 and spent 3 months, and he donated his time. Now, Harut Bastijan is a Lebanese Armenian Christian. He's not even Muslim. but he loves the Islamic art, and all of his work is within it. So he came here and he donated his time, and he did all of the calligraphy and the artwork inside the prayer room, in which I will show you at the moment. But then back in 2019, in Lebanon, when the financial crisis had hit, Harut lost everything. So he called the same board member and came back and told him, I need help. I lost everything. My kids are at age to go to college. I don't know what to do. He told him, you helped us, we'll help you. So he brought him back and gave him a home shelter. And we started to hire him at this point. And then he came and he did all of the new calligraphy that you see around these windows and around the glass domes. Those are all new. He did all of the new calligraphy that you see on the outside of the prayer room. And then he touched up and redecorated the wood because it was all mahogany. There was no decoration. He did all this by hand, him and his wife, and anyone that wanted to volunteer, which we had a board member by the name of Dr. Walid Harb. He assisted him in doing that, and every day they'd come in and do bits and pieces until they completed the decor.
When I went to the Arab American National Museum, one of the things I learned is how the Arabic alphabet really lends itself to beautiful calligraphy, which is an art form that deserves more recognition if you ask me. Artist Harut Bastijan has done a beautiful job putting that art form to good use in the Islamic Center of America. The prayer room itself is a huge, peaceful space, beautifully ornate thanks to the efforts of Harut Bastijan and the many volunteers that assisted him in his work. Mirabat wasn't kidding when she emphasized that the Islamic Center of America was built by the community. The prayer room has 2 floors, with a top floor for women only and the bottom floor for both men and women. During prayer times, the women pray in the back and the men in front due to etiquette. During prayer times and lectures, there is a lot of bowing down, bending over, getting up, and getting down, so men are kept in front of women in the first floor as a form of respect. The Islamic Center of America also tries to accommodate varying levels of Islamic following. Some women will not enter in the same room with a man in a place of worship, so not only is the top floor only for women, there is also doors only women can enter. Even the rugs in the prayer room have a simple beauty to them and represent a space for a person to pray. After my in-depth tour, Mirabat was kind enough to do a little interview about herself as a native of Dearborn.
You know, when people, and it's just ironic because I just got back from Italy, and then a lot of them would sit there and say, where are you from, you know? And then we would say, from the US, and they're like, no, where are you from? When a person asks you where you're from, we're asking you where you're originally from. You know, we're not asking you where you live, you know? So it's like we make those mistakes as an Arab American because we were born here. I was born in Michigan, in Dearborn, actually, even in Dearborn. I was born and raised in Dearborn. My dad is Syrian, and my mom is Lebanese. And they emigrated from Lebanon in 1973. So we've been here since. We still live in the same original home in Dearborn. It's a home that I was brought up in. It was a home that my kids were brought up with, and hopefully very soon their great-grandkids will be brought up. My parents have 22 grandkids. So wow. We have a big family. She had 6 kids in 4 years. And yeah, so we were raised in an Islamic background. We were raised in the sense of serving the community and serving people. So that's something that's within our blood and within our family.
Oh, nice. One of the things that I've also, and I saw it in those little video vignettes in the Arab American National Museum, is the balancing of identities.
Yes.
Sometimes because, and that was another thing that I could relate to because as a Latino, sometimes I wasn't Latino enough for some people, and sometimes I wasn't American enough for some people.
Right.
And in these books,
right.
there was that just with Arabs and Muslim Arabs. Sometimes you're not Arab or Muslim enough.
Right. Right.
And sometimes you're not American enough.
It's the same everywhere. Like even here now. You'll see a lot of people that would look at you and say, well, you don't dress like a Muslim, you know? So how do I could say this? So being an Arab American Muslim is the identity that we're born with. And we may not everybody will have, for example, for a woman will have the scarf, in a sense, to be recognized as a Muslim. But it's what's within in your heart and what you do back. It's what you leave behind, you know. It's not about what we look like, because at the end of the day, a lot of people can look the part but don't play the part. And growing up, we never had that problem here in Dearborn. It's because we were a community that was very knit tight. And when they tell you it takes a village to raise a child, that's exactly how it is growing up in Dearborn. Because not only are we being raised by our parents, you have your neighbors, your friends, you have people around you who look out for you. You know, you won't ever find someone going through something unless you see the whole community around them. So that's what's so special here. It's very special. And of course, in any community, you're going to get people who have a bad reputation, or a person that won't help. But that's very rarely that you'll find, even at the worst times, everybody puts everything on the side and we're there for that person, or you're there for that family.
Yeah, one of the five pillars, I believe,
Five pillars, yeah.
of Islam, charity.
Charity, which is sadaqah.
Sadaqah.
Yeah, so that's giving to the poor, giving to the less fortunate, give back to your community. We love to pay it forward, you know, and it's a term that's used in all religions. You know, we always want to pay it back. We always want to pay it forward. Because I tell my kids, at the end of the day, what did you leave behind? It's not how much money was in our bank account, because we can't take it with us. It's not about the clothes that we're wearing, because you're going to be buried in a cloth. You know, it's about what did you leave behind. And that's what that's the main point that we teach our kids. And everything is from God. Everything is alhamdulillah, which is thank God. You know, whether you're in bad times, and you'll hear a lot from a lot of Muslims. I mean, even now, you know, in Gaza, as you could say, if you see a lot of kids or families, you see them mourning, but what are they always coming out of their mouth? Excuse me, alhamdulillah, thank God, thank God, thank God. You know, and that's one term that it's not a religious term in a sense of Islam. Alhamdulillah is in every religion. You know, it's used in Christianity too. You know, you have Arab Christians that say alhamdulillah. You know, so it's a universal word that it says that we thank God.
It's funny you mentioned that, because with some of my Muslim friends I have in Chicago, they also say I have a lot of travel friends. They love to travel, and every time they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Italy, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I'm gonna go to Belgium, inshallah." And then I once told them, you know, because I was raised Catholic, we have a similar saying called Primero Dios, which is basically the same
God
thing.
willing.
God willing.
That's all it means, is God willing.
Yeah.
Same thing as we talk about when we say knock on wood.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
I mean, it's a term, but I mean, it's a term universally, like knock on wood, or don't jinx me, you know, in a sense. But yeah, so everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
So we just have to live day by day, and don't forget God, and love everyone. Doesn't matter who you are. Just be kind, you know, and Islam is a very loving and kind religion. If you actually go into the Quran and read it, it's all about being kind. The only woman that's mentioned in the Quran is Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
That's the only woman that's mentioned in the Quran, and it's a beautiful religion.
That's what I also found out, this going back to what I told you about the Grand Mosque, is when I went there, I went early enough to get an early tour. And the tour guide, he let us know, like, well, Jesus is in the Quran, you know, and Mary's in the Quran. We view him more as a prophet, but he's there, you know, and I didn't know that.
Yeah,
you know?
It's the same story. It's exactly, he is going to come back. You know, it's
he
all
talked about that too.
Yes, it's the same story. The only difference is the Quran was never changed. It was brought down by Gabriel to the prophet, in a sense, and it was done, and once it was completed, it was never changed. It was never changed after that. And before the Quran was the Torah. So if you read the Torah and you read the Quran, it's very similar. Very similar. And it's such, love thy neighbor. You know, who are your neighbors? Your neighbors are the Christians and the Jews. And they're mentioned in the Quran, you know, so it is. Once you really, now of course you're going to get a translation. If you don't get the correct translation, that may be different in a sense, but the actual wording of the Arabic Quran has never been changed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you, for that. And I do have one more question at least. This hopefully it's not too heavy. I don't think.
If I can answer it.
Yeah, with yeah, just your own opinion on it. So, I think there's this misconception. There definitely is this misconception that just because a woman wears either shayla or habaya
Right.
or it's oppressive.
Right, right. No,
Um,
it's, yeah.
and when it from what I've heard from other women who wear habaya, shayla, hijab, it's like, no, it's my choice.
Yes, it is.
You know?
It's definitely a choice. It's definitely a choice. It's definitely, you're even getting a lot of Muslims that say, well, I don't read it in the Quran that says that we have to cover it. You know, it does state in the Quran that you have to cover. It says to cover your bosoms. If you look at the woman that's named in the Quran, which is the Virgin Mary, she was covered. She was covered from her head down. That's one of the things that we look towards. Me as a Arab American Muslim woman, I don't cover, but do I do it because I don't believe in it? No, that's not why I don't cover. I sense and I feel that everything that I do, everything will be, how do you say this in English? Like, God will judge me for all my deeds, all my goodness. That may be one that I will be, reprimanded for, but hopefully my other good things will weigh heavy on. I do believe you do have to. And then everything that comes with it, whether you see the women wearing the black, or you see the ones that cover their eyes, that becomes a cultural thing. That was never a religious thing. So you'll see it through different countries, and you'll see different. So it's cultural. Even if you see an Arab American Muslim wearing hijab here, she'll be colorful, she'll be dressed in style. That's just the culture.
That is so true.
It's culture. So a lot of us have a misconception between culture and religion. Religiously, yes, we have to be covered. And the covering is for modesty. And the only people that can see you is your husband, your brothers, your uncles, your grandparents. Those are the only people that can see you without a scarf. And what is that's to protect the woman. She's a valuable person. And when a man looks at her, he should be his eyes should be gazed down. And that's what's written in the Quran. So it's humbleness, it's modesty. So that's the sign of the hijab. It has nothing to do with oppression. Oppression came because of culture and because of different countries all around the world. When they oppress the woman, they automatically sense, because this is a Muslim country, we're going to mix it with the religion, when it's just not.
The thing I love most about travel are the moments where you discover something out of the blue. This mural is one example. I bumped into it on my way to the American Muslim Society, and I literally did a U-turn when I saw it because it's tucked away in one of the walls of a local school. Located in the neighborhood of Salina, this mural stood out to me for its beauty, meaning, and emotion. The mural is called Blooming Possibilities, and a nearby plaque describes it as so. Quote, "The mural represents the beauty and importance of the Salina community and its schools and seeks to uplift and empower the community going forward. The flowers, many of which reflect countries of origin, symbolize the community's vibrant diversity. The teapot and cups embody community traditions and generosity, while the bird is a symbol of freedom and hope. The houses embody community vitality and future possibilities. The mural depicts this spirit with the images of students engaged in reading and sports among welcoming homes. The number 29 pays homage to the South End's history and the 29 court trials that secured these neighborhoods and the future of generations to come." End quote. The plaque does not include a description of the mother and child at the center of it all, but there's no need for one because this part of the mural is about emotion rather than symbolism. The loving smile the mother gives her child as she is adjusting her hijab or shayla, and the look of admiration the child gives her mother are all universal feelings of connection, trust, and guidance we seek from our own parents, even as adults, regardless of religion. For these reasons, I find this mural both beautiful and powerful. There's a humanity in this mural, which reflects the humanity I found all around Dearborn. Another discovery I made in Dearborn is that Yemeni coffee shops are big business here. Nearly every coffee shop I went to in Dearborn made it a point that they have the best Yemeni coffee in town, and the locals definitely have their favorites. Kamadi and Jabal coffee shops were popular spots where locals came to study, chat, or just relax after a long day's work. But without a doubt, the most famous of the coffee shops in Dearborn was Kahwa House. The word kahwa means coffee in Arabic, and the first kahwa house opened in Dearborn in 2018. It is the brainchild of Ibrahim al-Khazbani, a Yemeni immigrant who created Kahwa House as a way for others to understand his country of Yemen and its culture through its unique coffee and pastries. You can definitely taste the difference as the coffee is imported from Yemen and served the Yemeni way, though there are more familiar options if you aren't feeling adventurous. Bringing Yemeni coffee to the US masses has proven to be a massive success for Kahwa House, and this success has allowed it to expand beyond Dearborn. There are now stores in the Chicagoland area and in the states of New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and even Texas, with future stores set to be open in DC, Wisconsin, Indiana, and North Carolina. But in today's political climate, many people in Dearborn also see Yemeni coffee shops as more than just a place to get coffee. To them, it's a symbolic political alternative to where they can buy their coffee in opposition to other, more recognizable brands. Now, I'm fully aware that politics is always a touchy subject, but it's also hard not to address the elephant in the room. To clarify, none of these coffee shops in Dearborn directly engage in politics. They're businesses after all, and politics can get in the way of profit. Totally get it. However, the people of Dearborn definitely engage in politics. What is currently happening in Palestine is really important to many people in Dearborn, and with bigger coffee brands ignoring or even supporting the current state of things in Gaza and the West Bank, people will speak with their wallets and take their business someplace else, even when it's something as simple as where they get their coffee. It's a small but significant way that people can exercise the right to protest through their everyday life. And what's more American than to stand up for what you believe in than through a delicious cup of joe? Yemeni style. As my week in Dearborn came to an end, I reflected on my time in this wonderful city. It reminded me of the 1921 Tulsa Massacre and how far we've come since those dark days in American history. For those not familiar, in 1921, the entire city of Tulsa, Oklahoma was burned to the ground by white mobs who were jealous of black success when African Americans turned Tulsa into a thriving city that was known as Black Wall Street. What remains today of Tulsa's destruction are the painful memories and lessons of the destructive forces racism and prejudice can have in the U.S. It's been over a century since this happened, and the reason I bring it up is because, thankfully, the U.S. today is a country where one of its cities, whose population is nearly all Arab, can thrive and grow without the fear of its complete destruction, though the dangers of racism and prejudice are still present. Dearborn might not be described as Arab Wall Street, but the city is still a success story in its own right. As the years turn to decades and the decades turn into a century, Dearborn has weathered the specters of racism, Islamophobia, and xenophobia to become a beacon of hope not just for Arabs, but for the country as a whole. Dearborn is what you get when a city refuses to be labeled, refuses to be victimized, and instead proudly presents its unique Arab identity through their culture, food, religion, and hospitality. Dearborn is Yemeni. Dearborn is Lebanese. Dearborn is Iraqi. Dearborn is Syrian. Dearborn is Afghani. Dearborn is Palestinian. And Dearborn is American. All together in complete harmony. Thank you for watching.